Hello, I'm Scott Bogey here with your Dana White Contender Series contestant, Jack Congdon, ahead of his upcoming fight against Jean-Paul Lebosnoyani on week 4 of the Contender Series. How are you doing today?
Not bad. You? Yeah, very excited. Yeah, like I just said, flying out tomorrow. So very, very cool. It's come up fast.
And when did you hear about this opportunity?
We had, well, I shouldn't say we. I'd asked one of my coaches, Joe Lozon, about getting on the Contender Series this fall. Um, I had a fight back in January that I won. I brought it up to him then to see if he thought I was ready. He said, we'll reach out to the matchmakers at the UFC. He reached out to them. They watched my fights. They said that they wanted me to get one more win. So I had a fight back in May, won that fight, and then Joe reached back out to them to confirm that we got the win, and with that we solidified the opportunity.
So they just wanted one more win. You gave them fight of the year contenders. That last fight against Zach was absolutely thrilling. Did you know after that it wasn't just the win that got you there, it was the performance as well?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the UFC, they're looking for something in particular, right? And
Yeah.
especially on the contender, they're looking for that fighting spirit, for that killer instinct, right? They don't want guys that go in there and just hold down their opponent for 15 minutes. Like, fans don't want to see that, and they know that, and they're smart as business people, right? So yeah, to go in there and to put a barn burner of a fight on, that, while I don't want every fight to look like that, I want to go and do it in a more clean fashion. Zach was a tough guy, regional champ in multiple organizations.
Yeah.
And it was a good fight. Again, I don't want everyone to be like that, but some are going to be like that when you get to the higher level, right? Like, everybody's skilled, everybody's got technique, they're physically fit, and at a certain point, it boils down to, do you want it more? Somebody, you got to show who's the bigger dog, and I think I showed that ability in that fight, and that's what they're looking for. Um, so yeah, to kind of more directly answer your question, yeah, it wasn't just, that you go in there and win, but that you do it after a great fight and then you win in emphatic fashion with an awesome knockout.
And like you're saying, the contender series, they aren't looking for you to just hug your opponent and get the win. Dana has been very critical this season, in particular, of guys who's gone in and done that. I think it's like Rafael da Silva, Radley da Silva. He was just like, that's not how you get your contract. But that's just not how you do it. Whereas next week, all the finishes all got contracts. I think there was one decision, but it just shows they are looking for you to go in there, bite down on that gum shield, and just throw hands.
Yeah, exactly, man. That's what a fight should be about. And um, even in the main event of that card, even the kid that lost, they still liked him,
Yeah,
right? They said, like, hey,
it was
if
done
something
short
falls through,
notice.
we're going to call you up because you're willing to go out there and put on a real fight. Somebody's going to win or lose, but if you go out there and put on a good performance, that's what they're looking for. And obviously, as a fighter, you're looking to win. But I also believe, like, if you go out there with the correct spirit and the correct fighting spirit, you're going to win. You know?
And you've had this dream of being in that UFC for just a little while. Like I can't remember where we spoke ahead of the Ali fight or the fight before that. You're a bit surprised you hadn't got that call up already. Do you feel like that mindset has kind of prepared you already for this?
Yeah, I think I probably would have thought I would have gotten it last year if you talked to me at the beginning of last year, the beginning of 2024. But things don't always go as planned. I went and
Yeah.
fought for the regional title and I lost that fight, and so that set me back a year. Um, you got to go back to the drawing board. But I did. I completely improved as a fighter. in really all aspects. And I rattled off 3 straight wins and 3 straight finishes against guys that were Contender Series vets, PFL vets, Bellator vets, and other champs in other organizations. So, um, you know, it was just all systems go. We knew what the goal was at the end of the day. It was just going to be a matter of time to achieve it.
Now you're going to be in Vegas. Once Dana hands you that contract, how are you celebrating?
I don't know yet, man. I haven't planned that out too much. When I'm doing the visualization, I'm thinking about the fight. Um, but it's Vegas. We'll find something to do. I'm definitely getting some food. I could use a good burger or probably a fat pizza, right? But I'm sure we'll either hit the Strip or Old Town's pretty crazy too. Old Town's a vibe, so I'm sure we'll hit that. And it's kind of funny because I've got the plane the next morning at like 10:40 it departs at. So I did joke with my family that's going out there a little bit about like, hey, maybe we just don't sleep. Maybe we just stay up all night instead of like having to wake up so early. But I don't know. I'm joking around, but we'll see.
Or are you going to get on that plane, head to Paris, and get on that fight card?
Yeah, I don't know about that, right? I was just purely looking at this Contender Series fight,
Yeah.
right? Um, but hey, never been to Paris.
And when are you looking to come back? As long as you are all fit and healthy, when do you want to come back?
Yeah, for sure. First half, first quarter of next year. Um, yeah, I want to keep the time frame of 3 fights a year, and within a couple of years, build myself to the point where I'm in championship
Yeah.
contention. So you rattle off 3 fights a year, 6 good wins, and you put yourself in that conversation. Um, so yeah, like I said, definitely first quarter, first half next year. Obviously, you don't know how things play out with their
Yeah.
schedule. Like, if they came to Boston, I'd love to hop on that car.
And is there anyone in there that you like to make your debut against, or potentially even some fights that you may want to have in the future?
Yeah, I don't know about the debut, but I've always said that I'd love to fight Stephen Wonderboy Thompson at some point, just because he's really the only other guy at welterweight right now that really kind of embodies that traditional striking style.
Yeah.
He's got that karate background, and I come from a taekwondo background, and it's a little bit more adapted like towards MMA, and it's a little bit more kickboxing focused than just pure taekwondo.
Yeah.
But I think that would be an insane fight to have at some point, and that's the fight that I've always wanted to have. Like when I was watching the UFC coming up, was like, yeah, I'd love to fight Wonder Boy someday. Obviously he's a cool guy, um, and I like that about him too. Like he's a good example of what it means to be a martial artist. So um, I've got to get past this fight and win this fight first. But I would absolutely love to make the fight against Wonder Boy a reality at some point in the future.
And what did you make of the card that happened just yesterday, the UFC Shanghai one, where Johnny Walker was able to get that kick that was able to shut the leg off?
Yeah, because of the time that it was at, I didn't see it live, so I didn't see that full fight. I just saw the highlights that they posted on YouTube, and so I didn't see the first round. I just saw the finish where he had thrown a couple and it had really kind of broken him down. Um, so I can't say too much about that fight in particular. Um, But good to see Johnny Walker kind of bounce back because he can be a fun guy to watch, right? Because he's just so wild and explosive in there. Um, yeah, that's really all I can say about that.
And what do you make of like Johnny's fight style, where it is a bit more wild and technical?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't fight that way, but he's enormous too. Like he's like what 6'7" at
Yeah.
205. It's like you throw one of those and it lands on a guy, then game over, right? But it's tough because then you've seen him fight like top five, top 10 guys, and it stops working at such a high level, right? Um, but he's always fun to watch.
And in your division, the welterweight division, it is starting to show the new guard is coming in. You do see the likes of the Kamaru Usmans, the Leon Edwards starting to come down. I know Leon said he wants to come back to get that title reign, but then you start seeing the Ian Garys, the Sean Brady's, the new champion. They are just coming through the ranks now and breaking that divide. Do you feel like that new guard of enemy is starting to show?
Yeah, absolutely. You just named a lot of the guys. Um, Even Carlos Prates, although he
Yeah.
just lost Machado Gary, is kind of in that conversation as well, especially with a KO win over Jeff Neal like that. Yeah, you've got a good, solid, five guys right there that look like they could, be that next guard, and and Shavkat as well.
Yeah.
So with any of them. Obviously I've got a ways to go to build myself up to that point. But I think long term, like looking at these guys, it's like, yeah, man, I can go in there, I can compete, and I can win against all these guys in a year or two's time. So I'm definitely very excited to see that new guard kind of taking shape and welterweight being kind of revitalized there because Kamaru dominated the division for so long, and a lot of the fights were just not competitive. So it's good to see things shaking up, and I'm looking forward to uh, seeing myself go in there and shake up that mix as well.
And do you feel like fighters, speaking about Carlos Prates for a second, they are starting to fight a little bit more smart? You have Prates, for example, he wants to get back on that UFC Rio card, and that's coming up. Now, he said he wants to fight Daniel Rodriguez because it is his last fight on his current contract. The money that he's on doesn't represent a top five fight. Do you feel like that he's justified for doing that, or do you feel like he should still be aiming as high as he can?
Yeah, that's a really good question, right? You want to get paid what you're worth, and you want to get what the fight is worth.
Yeah.
At the same time, how do you look at it in terms of the bigger picture of your career, right? Because if you go in there and you fight a top five guy in Rio and you beat him in front of your home country, you're going to have this huge resurgence in your country. You're going to have all this support behind you. And does that put you next in line for a title? And then you go and you get that fight, and you can potentially get more money in the long term that way. Um, those are tricky things to calculate that I don't exactly know the answer. Um, I think as a fighter, the main focus has to be, being the best fighter that you can be, and um, and then the money will come from that. So, maybe his manager or his coaches are telling him to say that, and they've done the calculations. I don't know, but I know at least for myself right now, where you're coming up on the regional scene, the money's not great. Um, I keep telling myself like you just stick to the grind, you do the right things, and you will get the money eventually.
And I saw an interesting take online, just like about fighter pay, is that the regionals at that scene, you're not really getting paid that much. It's like 2K if you are a good fighter on that card. Whereas to go from that to £20,000 like contract, it is just a massive step forward. So even though it may still not be as good as when you take off the coaches and manager fees and that, it is just that much greater from the regional scene. Do you feel like that is the case of why it's not really increased as much over the years?
Yeah, that's a great point, right? Because if there's no competition,
Yeah,
then why would it change? Um, right. That's the great thing about the free market is that if you have those other forces pushing you, then you have to increase pay. Um, there's a ton of factors. I'm sure I don't know all the numbers, but it's tough too, right? Because like if obviously it's not amazing money if you're an American. If you're a Brazilian and you get that much money, it's like 5 to 6 to 1. Now
yeah,
you're talking like okay, you're making real good money down in Brazil, and a lot of the guys are international. Um, but you fight 3 times a year. You get your wins. Maybe you get a win bonus or two. Then you can start making some solid money. You're not rich. You're not going to be buying a huge house or you're not buying Lambos yet. But the way I'm kind of looking at it is like, well, that's your rookie contract, right? You're not going
yeah.
to be balling out on your rookie contract. But then you get some notoriety. You get onto the bigger contracts. You start to make some good money. You can get some sponsorships outside of fighting too. So there's ways to make good money. But yeah, that is a really good point of like that. There's just not the competition driving the wages up.
And what is your prediction for your Contender Series fight?
I believe I'm going to go in there and find that knockout.
Well, we can't wait to see you get that knockout. It is going to be fantastic. You guys can see him get that contract from Dana White and make sure you drop in how you should celebrate down below. Is there anything you'd like to add or anyone you want to shout out?
I just want to say thank you to all my coaches and sponsors and my teammates for all the work that we've put in um, for this camp. It really does take a village, and I really felt that this camp. And just talking to people in the area, I've felt so much love going into this fight, and so many people are going to be tuning in. Um, and I'm just really excited to go in there and show out and get everybody amped up back here.
Well, we know you're going to put on a show. You'll find that knockout and you'll be able to get that contract with Dana White. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir. Thank you.